Okay, friends, let's talk about the books I read in January. Hey friends, my name's Jess. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. I'm going to talk about the books that I finished this past month. I cannot believe it is already February. I read 7 books this month, and only 2 of them were ones that I physically owned. So this month I've really been trying to use the services that I have signed up for. So I have Libby, I have Everand, and then I also have Kindle Unlimited. I really tried to utilize those this month. And so I only physically have 2 of the books that I read. But let's get into these books. I got through 7 books. And of those books, I got my data here. Let's see. Of those 7 books, 4 were Christian books. 1 was nonfiction about food. There were 2 Christian fantasy, 1 secular but clean romance, 1 historical fiction, 1 Christian historical fiction, and 1 that was YA, Christian, historical fiction, fantasy. I really don't know where to put it. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So overall, it was a good reading month. It wasn't a bad reading month by any means. I think I took like 2 weeks off. I didn't read anything for like 2 weeks. We were all sick. It just happens. Life happens that way. And it's amazing how many books you can still get through even when you take those breaks. Because when you come back to it, you're like, yes, and you get through so many all at once. All right, let's see. This is always the video that tests my memory. The first book that I read this month, I actually finished it on January 1st, and that was In Winter's Kitchen by Beth Dooley. So Beth grew up in the Northeast, and we follow her story of how she relocated to the Midwest up to, I think, Minneapolis. It was either St. Paul or Minneapolis in the Twin Cities area. And she just was astonished with the availability of food in that region. And I think can be said in many regions of our country where you're growing all of this food, but none of it is to be consumed. So here locally to me, it is mostly, we have a field across. I can see it from here. And it is either beans or field corn. So we kind of go through this process with her of being able to find and source really good food, really good organic, locally grown food. So there were several chapters and each one kind of took on a different theme. And I don't have it to flip back through. I listened to the audiobook from Everand. One that specifically stood out to me was the chapter on wheat and how drastically that has changed over the last few decades, and just the nutrition value and the things that are sprayed on our food is just a little crazy. I loved following along with her journey of discovery and different things that she's looked into and how she has helped to bring more to her community. I think that is so beautiful when you see a need and then you make it your life's purpose to fill that need. I think that's beautiful. I've since followed her on Instagram and I love seeing all of the things that she's cooking up. She has several cookbooks out that I have not checked out yet. So I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and I would definitely recommend if it's a topic that you're interested in. All right, the next 2 books that I picked up were in a series. I completed the Ravenwood Saga by Morgan L. Bussey. 5 stars. Both 5 stars. Absolutely loved them. They're the 2nd and 3rd books in the series, so I don't want to say too much specifically about the plot of these 2 books. What I can say is that this kind of battle between good and evil and the things that the characters have to overcome are real and somewhat gritty, but also just so impactful. And these are the kind of books that I wish I could get into the hands of more young people. They're beautiful. I wholeheartedly recommend this whole series, and I look forward to picking up more from Morgan L. Bussey in the future. Alright, so the next book that I read was The Golden Goal by Anna Conwell. This is a secular, clean, sweet romance. It is a hockey romance, which honestly, I'm kind of ready for a break from hockey romances, but this one was still on my list, so I went ahead and read it, and I was not disappointed. This one is actually part of a series, so it's the first book in the More Than a Game series. We have Sutton, who is a physical therapist, and she lands a job with the hockey team. Shaw is her brother's best friend, and he happens to play on this hockey team. So they are kind of I wouldn't call them enemies, but they definitely don't tend to get along when they're around each other. And later on we find out that maybe there were some feelings that may have contributed to some of the tension between them. And so it was super cute, sweet. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend. So with a romance, I don't like to talk a lot about what happens in the book because it's already formulaic as it is. And when I go into romance, I just want to have a good time. I want to know that it is a sweet, clean romance, and there's probably going to be a happily ever after. And aside from that, I just want to enjoy the reading process. And so in my reviews, I don't give a ton of information because I honestly don't want it going into it either. All right, the next book that I picked up was The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This one was a surprise, but not a surprise at the same time. So at this point, I feel like I've heard everyone talk about this book, and for good reason, definitely good reason. I went into this knowing some, but not entirely everything that was going to happen. It was historical fiction, it was mystery, it was about a real life person, but fictionalized. I don't know, this is one of those books that's going to stick with me for quite a while. There is a lot of traumatic content in here, and it absolutely goes with the story and needs to be there, but just know that going into it. So in this, we follow Martha Ballard, who is a midwife, and through her work as a midwife, there are a lot of things that happen and a lot of things that she tends to that might be an issue for some people to read. So please look up any content that you might want to be aware of in the reviews. There are plenty of reviews on Goodreads to find it. I don't know. I had a hard time getting into the first few chapters, but then I was just absorbed into the story. I love a good historical fiction that can teach me about a time and place in history that maybe I don't know a lot about. And this one definitely did that. There's a mystery aspect to it that was really cool to see. A lot of things with court cases that she's involved in. I loved the depiction of her marriage in this book. What a beautiful representation of being husband and wife, and really just showing all of the different things that this family was dealing with. It was so intricate and all woven together. It was a fantastic story. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars, I think. I know it's been a minute. So I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it. If you are someone like me that has never had a child of your own, there are lots and lots and lots of stories of pregnancy and birth, and it is beautiful, but just know that if that's something that you are struggling with in this season of life, this is definitely not the book to pick up right now. But I just like to put that out there because it is a good book, but make sure you're ready for it if that's your situation. All right, so the next book I read was The Librarian at Boone's Hollow by Kim Vogel Sawyer, and in contrast to The Frozen River, which I felt was a lot darker, which is very fitting of the setting. So is the other one. The Librarian at Boone's Hollow was much more optimistic and positive, whereas The Frozen River was very gritty, and this one is more uplifting. So The Librarian at Boone's Hollow, we follow Addie Cowherd. It is during the Great Depression. She finds out that her dad has lost her job, and she's going to have to leave college and find a job of her own to help support herself and hopefully her family. So she finds employment in Kentucky through a federal government program where she is delivering books to poor families in the mountains. So she, from town, takes the books out. So we also follow Emmett Tharp, who returns home and is looking for employment. It is during the Great Depression. There are so many people looking for work, and there's not much else besides coal mining to get through. I loved this story. It was a 5-star read for me. I loved the quiet determination of Addie and how she just kept going no matter what. She kept getting kicked down, pushed out of college because she couldn't afford it any longer. When she gets there, she kind of has some struggles, you know, learning the ropes and figuring out what her job is going to be, what her place is going to be in this new community. Anyone who has moved to a small town might have experienced the situation where the locals all know each other and you're kind of an outsider, and your determination and perseverance might be tested in that time. And these two towns kind of have this rivalry between each other, and it's really hard to, there's really not a lot of interacting between the two. So I loved Addie's determination. She had to overcome a lot to be accepted in the town. I also loved how she was not about to back down when the people of the town were upset with her for who she chose to lodge with. I don't know. It was my first book by Kim Vogel-Sawyer, and I look forward to more from her. If you have any recommendations of where I should go next with her, please let me know down in the comments below. Okay, the last book that I finished this month, I finished it just before our book club, and that was Healer by Linda Windsor. I am not going to hold this copy up the whole time. This sticker drives me crazy. I got it off of, I got this one off of eBay, I think I did. Yes, I got this copy off of eBay, this sticker. Yeah, it's okay. So in this book, we are in 6th century Scotland. So we follow Brenna, who has been orphaned. Her parents were murdered, and we see that in the prologue of the book. She has been raised by her nurse and is eventually left alone, is very secluded. She does not have interactions with people to keep her protected. We also follow Ronan, who is the firstborn son of Tarlik of the O'Byrne clan, who was being trained to take over for his father. And his father is actually the one that murdered Brenna's parents. So they are part of clans that are warring with each other. There is a lot of violence in the prologue. There is some violence later in the story, but it does not continue at the same level as it did before. I really liked the constant faith that Brenna shows in this story. I love the constant self-sacrificing and love that she has for people in her healing abilities. There were a lot of things I struggled with in this book as well. The constant prayer was beautiful, but then there was a constant voice back to her, which made me a little uncomfortable. The insta love, it's definitely insta love, and a lot of times in romance books I'm okay with that because they fall in love and then they're in love, they're dating or something like that. This book was fall in love, married, baby, immediately. And it goes through some of the different situations, so I just try to push that aside and enjoy the story for what it was, if I could believe that part. It was a good read. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. All right, so those are the books I read in January. I hope you had a fantastic reading month. February is coming up. I actually finished a book. I almost put it in here. I finished a book on February 1st. I'd read it most of the month, and then I didn't finish it until Saturday. And that is Persuasion by Jane Austen, but I'm going to hold that one for February. So I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.